Hello, welcome back to Masters of Inventory. I'm your host, Mandy Madsen, and I'm here with my co-host, Stan Andrus, CEO of Simple RFID. And today we are exploring inventory management for retailers who sell jewelry and why the long-observed methods of tracking this inventory are actually quite problematic. And we're going to explore how RFID technology is changing the game, solving these issues, and creating new opportunities for these retailers to grow and scale their businesses like never before.
Yeah, absolutely, Mandy. You know, jewelry retailers have these small items. They're high value, and oftentimes they're fast-moving trends, and they also sell in a wide variety of formats. And all of these different things bring their own unique challenges, really. So
absolutely, and these problems can lead to lost revenue, customer disappointment, or worse. So let's jump in and talk about some of the biggest pain points that these retailers are facing. First up is the fact that jewelry pieces are small but high in value. So that unfortunately makes them easy targets for theft or loss. So without precise tracking, it's tough to keep track of every item, and that's money lost every time a piece is unaccounted for.
Yeah, for sure. You think about it, jewelry, people who are managing jewelry, it's a real trick, right? They have hundreds of styles. They've got different kinds of gems. They've got materials, designs, and all these different things that they have to manage. So keeping the inventory straight is a real struggle for them. There's no question. And you think about when a customer comes into a jewelry store, they need to be able to go retrieve a certain piece really quickly. So they really have their own unique set of challenges.
Absolutely. Next pain point we'll talk about is seasonal demand. So what are the most popular times for jewelry sales? Well, the major spikes typically happen around the holiday or wedding seasons. And if inventory isn't aligned with these busy periods, it's easy to miss sales or end up overstocked on items that don't move.
Yeah, absolutely. We're kind of going into that season right now, right? With Christmas, but spring and summertime when a lot of people are getting engaged and things like that. So there's also the challenge of sales formats. We briefly touched on that, but it's becoming more and more common for jewelry stores to sell in a much wider variety of formats. So that includes both online and in-store. And as we've talked about in previous podcasts, and we keep really driving home this point, if you're selling product online and in store at the same time, you really can have your inventory messed up really bad.
For sure.
And that can mean that you're selling product online that doesn't even exist or that's already been sold. And so, and there's also other formats like trunk shows, and we'll get into some of that here in a bit, but lots of different unique challenges. So
yeah, you don't want to jump into why trunk shows can be challenging?
Right. So trunk shows, as many of you know, it's like a format where you're taking your product on the road. It can be trade shows, it can be jewelry shows, and you're going and you're taking a set of your inventory and taking it from location to location, maybe for a week, maybe for a couple weeks, or maybe just for a day, setting up a display, selling inventory there, and then tearing it back down and moving on. So trying to keep track of every single one of these little items becomes a real challenge.
For sure. And it's one thing if you're the owner managing the trunk show, but what if it's one of your staff or like employees and you have to trust them with like this expensive batch of your inventory going in? So it's really important that you're able to track that.
Yep.
So trends in jewelry change fast. So having inventory that's out of date or just isn't selling ties up cash that could go towards more in-demand styles. So retailers really need a way to spot slow-moving items before they become a problem.
Right. Yeah. And obviously traditional methods of barcode counting or hand counting just don't cut it. They're way too time consuming. But in addition to the time consuming nature, they also increase the chance for human error exponentially. So it's more common if you're using barcodes or hand counting to not audit with that much frequency. Maybe a lot less than you want. So and really perhaps the biggest pain point, and I always like to drive this home, is the pain of not knowing, right? So as a business owner, you are often stressed out just for the fact that you don't know. You might not fully know if that trunk show still has the items, like you're saying. You may not know if product has walked off and left, if somebody's stealing from you. So really RFID is kind of an insurance policy. We'll get into that here in a bit.
For sure. So that's what we're going to talk about, how RFID solves these pain points. And you may have heard from our previous episodes, but it's a good refresher or good information for those who don't know. But RFID stands for radio frequency identification. It works with radio waves. And the basic benefits of this technology is the speed of counting 1,000 items per minute. Accuracy is up to 99%. You have the ability to search and find missing items with visual and audio cues. So just like a game of hot and cold. It's pretty awesome. And you can track items by serial number.
Right, absolutely. And we have and continue to work with a lot of different types of jewelers. We work with online only retailers. We work with traditional retailers that don't even have an online presence. We work with jewelers that have more of a consignment format, or even jewelers that manufacture their own products and source them from suppliers all around the world. So all of these have their own unique challenges. So
how do they tag their jewelry typically?
There's a couple different ways that we see them doing it. The traditional way would be the product that's on a display or in a case, where they are rings or watches, things like that, and they'll use the traditional rat tail that loops around the item with the butterfly closure that will just close on top of itself. And so that's really super common for product that's in displays. For loose stones, for charms, things like that are going to be assembled, and for backstock, it's usually that the product ends up in a small poly bag, and then they'll apply an adhesive RFID sticker on top of that poly bag. And so that provides a really great way to manage and track those loose items.
Or on the back of like an earring, cardboard.
Right, absolutely.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how RFID solves these pain points we discussed earlier. So first, because of the speed of RFID and the ease of auditing, this helps track every item in near real time, which cuts down on theft and missing items. And it really provides stores peace of mind, which is what you were talking about earlier, because they know exactly what's in stock at any given moment.
Right. Yeah. We keep talking about this, but it's so critical to understand this. RFID does not require line of sight to count. So obviously everybody's familiar with barcode scanning because you've all been to the grocery store and checked out your groceries. And, that does require line of sight. That optical scanner has to see that code on every single one of those products, and you have to do that one by one. And so RFID doesn't require that line of sight. So you can have 500 pieces in a tote and literally wave an RFID wand, just a reader over the top of that tote, and count all 500 of those pieces literally in under a minute. So it's really, really cool. The time savings is substantial. So I think back, and it's been a few years since I was with my cousin who owns a jewelry store up north in Utah County. But, every single time that they close down their store, I think they would take them a couple hours at the end of the day. Yeah, every night they would go and they would pull the displays out and they would count meticulously one by one to make sure all of the pieces were present. And you think about the time commitment, and then how accurate is that, right? You've got staff that you may or may not trust, but even if you trust them and you're willing to go that route, you're still paying for an extra hour or two or whatever that takes every single day, just to make sure that you have everything present. So,
yeah, what a nightmare.
Right.
So RFID also helps with seasonality because you're tracking what's selling, and it can help retailers predict demand and adjust inventory so they're ready for peak seasons without being stuck with unsold stock afterward. And this really transforms ordering because you're shifting inventory replenishment from a push model where you're pushing based on forecast of last year's sales to a pull model driven by actual store needs.
Right. And you think about the challenge that a push model brings. Push models are based on previous year's forecasts of both quantities and styles. Well, as we've mentioned before, seasonality and styles change, where you'll have less demand for a certain item and or something will kind of become obsolete, And so if you're making all of your inventory replenishment decisions based off of that push model where you're saying this is what they need, this is what they need, and this was based on the last couple of years, you might be accurate, but you may be way off. And so transforming that into a pull model where you're actually basing it on exactly what they have and then replenishing based on that becomes a lot more accurate. And you don't end up with bloated inventories, unfortunately. If you're doing the push model, you can end up with massive bloated inventories because last year they needed that many, and so that's what they're getting.
It really shows the value of having accurate counts.
Right. Absolutely. Yep.
It's more than just like, the RFID is more than an accounting tool.
Right.
We have a customer, and we've said this in other episodes, but he said he's going to save $10,000 to $20,000 this year alone because he's not going to be ordering a size pant that he knows now that he has way too many of.
Right. Exactly. And that's really a perfect example of this, push versus pull model for forecasting. So, and then on the multi-channel inventory, front, you've got inventory essentially updated in near real time. And in some cases, if you've got, RFID readers, over your doors or in your store, you could have real-time inventory controls. But the point is that you're able to track that day by day to identify if things are being sold online, for example, you can immediately have that change reflected. And so you really reduce the risk of overselling substantially. Many of you are familiar with terms like BOPUS, which is buy online, pick up in store. And nowadays, the world has really, there's a lot more ways to fulfill items and accommodate different buyer preferences. And, really the shopper wins. And so stores have to be a lot more flexible and have to have the ability to fulfill in a much more dynamic format. Well, without really tight inventory controls, formats like BOPUS just don't work, because if you sell it online and you don't have it when the customer shows up to pick it up, you're probably not going to end up with a very happy person showing up there to pick up what they've already paid for and what they say is ready for pickup.
For sure.
So.
Okay, so why don't we ask some frequently asked questions about the unexpected benefits of RFID. So how does RFID improve loss prevention?
Yeah, well, we've talked a little bit about how, with traditional methods, inventory audits just don't happen with that great, degree of frequency. So if something goes missing, you have such a wide window to determine when it went missing, who was around when it went missing. And so you really don't know. You're starting, you're guessing. Whereas if you have RFID, that's a day-by-day visibility to those items. And so you can identify who was working that day. You can look at cameras. You can really drill down and identify, a lot. You can really identify where and when it went missing.
Because you know what's missing from day to day.
Right.
Like it was here yesterday. I see a verified date and time it was here, and now it's not here. So was it tied to a sale, or did somebody just
fulfill it wrong or something? Yeah, totally. So.
Okay, so how does it help with supply chain visibility, such as product at a supplier or manufacturer level? Yeah,
and this is really huge, actually. So one of our really great customers it's a jewelry company. They're worldwide, and they have operations all over the world in India and Hong Kong and all over the place, where they're building their products, manufacturing their products, and then shipping them over to their different fulfillment centers. Well, that RFID really excels there because it gives them visibility to not only what's on site at their manufacturers, but they're able to verify that they received it complete when it lands.
By serial number.
By serial number, right. So it really tightens the controls and makes that exchange of product between the supplier and the warehouse.
And just to clarify, these suppliers are actually printing the stickers there. It's easy with our solution.
Yeah.
We teach them how to do it. They print the stickers, they apply it to these products so that when they arrive in the fulfillment centers or the stores, they can go ahead and just do a quick scan and receive all of that product in like that, instead of having to count them, mark, a sheet.
Totally.
It's amazing.
Yeah. It's no different than printing stickers with any other barcode-based solution or anything like that. So they just literally, their printer's right there, and all of that's happening in-house. So really convenient.
Pretty great. Okay, how about trunk shows? How does it help with that?
Yeah, that's one of the areas we've seen the biggest benefit from. So originally, when we started this company, we were working with Costco Wholesale with their roadshow program. So the roadshow program is like a consignment format. And the challenge is that when you have product that has not yet been paid for and is off at some third-party location, you really want to know what's there, and day by day, even sometimes minute by minute. So there's a huge value add with the consignee market, and so yeah, huge.
Okay, did I ask you trunk shows and then?
We talked a little bit about trunk shows. Trunk shows kind of fall in a similar format, I guess, to the consignment type of format, because that product is on the road. Yeah, it may not be that you're passing it to a third party to manage, or that you may actually have an employee that's managing that trunk show.
So how does that even work? Like, what does that process look like?
Trunk shows would be like you're arranging a set of inventory. They're putting it in some kind of tote usually, and then one of your employees is going to a set of shows for a few days or sometimes a week, and then moving that inventory through those events. And so that's really critical to know what you have at that point. It's out on the road. If you're an owner, you're going to want to know, hey, is all my inventory there? But not only that, if you're the person managing that trunk show, you're going to want to know, hey, did I gather everything up that, sans what I sold? Did I gather everything up and, to take home or to take to the next show?
So they would scan it when they pack it up and
Right.
say, okay, here's the known inventory by serial number.
Yep.
They would get to the show, scan it again. Everything's there. Okay.
Right.
Scan it from day to day of the show.
Yep.
And then return back with what didn't sell, and hopefully everything matches up to sales.
Yep, exactly.
So what kind of peace of mind can an owner have?
massive peace of mind. Yeah. And they can see the change in inventory. That also facilitates restocking too of these shows. So specifically with the roadshow program, these displays would go from store to store to store to store, and sometimes they'd be out for extended period of time, up to maybe 10 shows even. So they had to have visibility to be able to restock these shows, as they were out on the road. And so the ability to know what they had at any given time and then restock was absolutely pivotal. We had a customer that reported a 30 to 40% increase in revenues from our product based on that format. So it was a massive boost. Yeah. Just because they were able to identify what was moving, and they didn't have to wait for this sales data to come in through the traditional channels. They could know right away. So.
Okay. So what kind of operational cost savings can one expect, by processes or training perhaps?
Well, I mean, we spoke to the, shutting down a jewelry store every single night, spending an hour or two just going through and counting products. But you think about also training your employees at one of these consignment, shows. Your process can be simplified down to, hey, grab this device, wave it over your products, make sure it matches up with, what you're supposed to have. So you can really simplify down that training process too. Absolutely.
And the labor hours.
Yeah, the labor hours.
way down.
Shrink way down.
Now people might be wondering, can you read through the glass cases, the display cases that the jewelry is typically in these stores?
Yeah, absolutely. Even these small, tiny little jewelry labels, with the rat tail and butterfly enclosure, have, I think, up to about 11-foot read range on them. So yeah, absolutely. You can walk around your store and you don't even have to open up the cases at all, and you're able to count and validate all that product sitting right in the displays themselves. So super convenient.
Incredible.
Yeah.
All right. So RFID enables more effective tracking of merchandise, reducing shrinkage from theft or misplacement. And this not only protects profits, but also ensures the product's available for genuine customers.
Right.
And the peace of mind bit. And you had a thought on
Right.
insurance, right?
Yeah. You think about how many times in our lives when we pay for peace of mind. When was the last time you were booking a trip on Expedia or Travelocity or whatever, and they have that little checkbox at the very end when you're ready to hit pay now that says, hey, do you want to add travel insurance? It's just $35. And, you don't know, hey, some unforeseen thing can happen. And by paying that extra $35, you're going to be able to cancel if it comes down to it and still get your money back. Well, RFID is really kind of an insurance policy for your inventory, for your assets, because you're able to track them with that granular level of detail. So in a way, I see it as an insurance policy for your products, for your inventory, for your business, really. And that's really, if you're a company and you sell products, then your investment is your products.
Absolutely.
So,
well, RFID has really become a transformative tool for jewelry retailers, addressing some of the biggest pain points. And with jewelry stores being such a high stakes business, having this technology can give them not only peace of mind, but a real competitive edge.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So if you're a jewelry retailer and you want to see how RFID can help address some of these pain points, maybe you have some other pain points that you could see this benefiting, we'd love for you to reach out to us and schedule a consultation. There's a link in the show notes to set up a quick call, and we'd love to chat with you and learn about your business. And we also have the option to run trials. So $199, we send you out a small handheld reader, and we can pre-print labels for you. And that way you can actually tag and test this technology with your own products in your own environment. So that really can add a level of confidence, because you might be listening to us going, hey, this sounds almost too good to be true. Well, we can Pepsi challenge this out.
It's like magic. It's pretty awesome.
Exactly.
Well, thanks for tuning into Masters of Inventory. Make sure to subscribe for more episodes on inventory management that can make a real difference in your business. And remember, friends don't let friends count inventory manually.
Don't do that to one another.
Don't. Tell your friends.
Tell your friends, yeah.
Okay. See you next time.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks
you.
a lot. Okay, see ya.